On paper, last month looked perfect. 2 easy projects for 2 perfect clients. It would have been the best month yet for my woodworking business. But easy projects have a way of humbling you, especially when you make big, dumb mistakes. But if I can dig my way out of this one, maybe taking the long way around could still get me where I want to be. Let's get to it. I've built a lot of stuff over the years, but until recently, it's been almost exclusively for myself or friends and family. Now, since I made the leap to start my own custom furniture business a couple years ago, I've been forced to relearn a lesson that caused me to completely change career paths after college. That lesson is that not everything I like, the clients will like or be willing to pay for. But I'll come back to what happened with that a little later. The good news is that from watching some of my favorite artists and creators over the years, as you build more and more projects and refine your unique style, customers will start to come to you for your vision. Eventually. This project was simple enough: a set of 4 shelves designed by the customer to be reversible and sized to hold books and vinyl records. They provided their own drawings and dimensions along with just 2 notes. They wanted a slight roundover on all the edges and finger joints on the outer corners to make it more visually interesting. Outside of playing with some dovetail joinery and assembling pre-made beehives, I haven't really worked with finger joints before. But as you might remember from my last video, I just recently picked up a giant CNC machine. My plan was to use it to speed up some of those more tedious bits, like flattening and cutting the finger joints. One of those worked swimmingly. The other did not. Getting more comfortable with my new table saw and the sleds I made in the last video have made a huge difference in the workflow around my shop. But I was so used to getting pelted in the face with sawdust from my old table saw that I didn't notice during these projects that the hose got clogged. So, as this video goes on, you'll notice that the amount of sawdust being thrown directly into my face keeps getting worse and worse. I do eventually fix it though. Rubio sells these little snap-open samples on their website for like $2 each, which is great because buying $60 shot glasses worth of Rubio can get expensive fast. I sent a picture of these samples over to the customer and they ended up picking the center one, Cocoa. Incorporating the CNC into the shop has already proven to be really helpful on the projects I did this last month, even if I do still have some dialing in to do. For these last 3 projects specifically, for being able to quickly batch out parts and pieces while I handled the more laborious tasks, like sanding. So much sanding. The drum sander was helpful, but as you'll see later, it had its own set of drawbacks with the maple and darker finish. Back to my original point, it turns out getting customers for a new custom furniture business is really hard. One of the biggest hurdles so far has been building trust with local designers, businesses, and architects. They've already got their go-to folks, so breaking into the market is challenging, especially when you don't have a huge catalog of work to show off yet. And early on, honestly, I was so excited to just deliver projects, I failed to get high-quality photos of those projects for the website and promotional materials, compounding the issue. By far, the most frustrating part has been that some people genuinely don't understand that the reality of having something custom built is not going to be cheaper than mass-produced products sold by IKEA or Pottery Barn. Well, they might be cheaper than Pottery Barn, but you get where I'm going with this. So it's not been uncommon for folks to be downright offended at the pricing. One person even tried to trick me into agreeing to sell them a more expensive piece, then tried to rush out and buy materials to push the price down even further. Like, imagine bringing your own grocery store steak to a fancy restaurant to save money. The expense isn't the meat, it's the person cooking it, along with their tools and their experience. And misunderstanding or not, that's not the working relationship you want to have with a customer. For me, it broke the trust before we even got started. Anyway, I say all that to highlight how much more rewarding it is when you're working with customers who do understand your value, and what an honor it is to be trusted by them to help bring their vision to life. But that didn't make it hurt any less when I totally ruined this project and had to break it to the customer. It did, however, emphasize that mental shift of not building for yourself from earlier. Because at this point in the build, I was super stoked with how these were coming together. And I loved the rustic finger joints. It turns out there were a number of mistakes and misunderstandings on the project. The first I already mentioned is that I chose maple. The second was that I didn't use cauls to flatten the glue-ups. So when I surfaced those blanks with the CNC, they all had minor variations in thickness and really pronounced tooling marks from the flattening bit. The minor variations in thickness, along with that 1/8" roundover I put on all the outer edges, caused the finger joints to look really rustic, and the customer wanted them to look way more modern. But the real killer was when I applied the Rubio to the first 2 shelves. Even though I followed up the surfacing and the drum sanding with 80 to 120 and then 150 grain on the orbital sander, the Rubio highlighted every blemish, scratch, and tooling mark. And the lines from the drum sander were everywhere. I knew I couldn't deliver these in good conscience, and getting them to look consistent and as modern as the customer wanted was going to be pretty much impossible. At this point in my business, a good reputation and quality builds are worth way more than the loss in profit. So I made the tough decision to go full stop and present them with some options.
Option number 1, I give them a full refund and I count this up as tuition, the cost of learning this lesson. Then I can refer them to another craftsperson here in town that could get them on the schedule as quickly as possible to try to save face. Option number 2 is I put them on the next open slot on my calendar, which is 2 weeks from now. We start with completely new materials and finish, and I eat the cost on the original materials. Option number 3, I sand everything down and refinish it, deliver them as is, and build an elaborate cover system that ties them all together looking like one modern unit. Understandably, they wanted some time to think it over and decide what direction was best for them. And while we wait, I'm gonna get started on the next project that I hope will be simple and straightforward.
Taking a pause was a tough decision, but I know it was the right thing to do. And I really needed to get this next project done before I left for the Texas Woodworking Festival, which was less than 2 weeks away. The customers for this project were an amazing group of people who were working to open their first restaurant and brewery. I'd reached out to them when I heard and asked if they needed any custom woodworking, and they asked if I could build a couple tables and potentially help with a few other projects. They gave me the dimensions of the 2 tables they needed, and I made a couple drawings, and after a few tweaks to maximize storage space, they approved my designs and I got to work. Even though I was still worried about what direction the first customer would decide, it felt really good to have come up with the designs and have them approved for something like this. This is a high-class restaurant and brewery, and custom tables I designed and built are going to be used there. It's exactly the type of work I want to be doing, exactly the direction I want my business to go, and I felt like a real artist and craftsman. I've always wanted to be an artist. As a child, I loved to draw, and I lost count of how many sketchbooks I filled up over the years. So when I graduated high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life, and I got a degree in graphic design. I remember feeling so excited about the future with that little piece of paper in my hand. But, and you should be seeing a theme here, getting freelance graphic design customers was hard, and the internet, well, wasn't as robust as it is today. I took a job at a local sign shop to get some experience and leveraged friends and family contacts to try to get some work and build up my portfolio. But the problems I ran into aren't much different than I'm seeing today. I remember presenting a new branding package to a client that I'd carefully printed and matted to make a nice impression, and they balked at the price. I think I asked $250, which today you can't even find cheaper on Fiverr, really. But the straw that dashed my delicate hopes and dreams against the rocks like a baby seal, or however that saying goes, was when I designed what I thought was an amazing logo for a company. I was certain this was a sure thing. I presented them with the concepts, and they said, I don't know. I think it needs more purple. Purple? Who the heck needs more purple? But I was young, and honestly, it hit harder than it should have. I started thinking, maybe I couldn't make a living doing creative work. Maybe I can't do this. This was all right around when 9/11 happened, and not long after that, I joined the local sheriff's office, and my dreams of making a living by being an artist lay dormant for over 20 years. That logo ended up becoming Barney the Dinosaur. Just kidding. I mentioned the table saw sleds a little earlier and what a big help they've been around the shop. Somebody reached out through the website and asked if I could make them a smaller version that fit a job site saw. So I did. If you'd like to build your own version of one of these sleds with precision cut pieces made right here in my shop, they're all available over on my website now. The design I came up with for both these tables was originally going to be maple legs with a walnut top and shelves. The shelves needed to allow for 3 levels of storage, each 12 inches tall. The smaller of the 2 tables needed to also be enclosed on 2 sides. And I just thought it would be fun to cut in channels with hand-chiseled details for the shelf supports themselves. The customer later asked me to substitute the walnut for stained maple to match the cabinet somebody else had already installed. The tops and shelves are made from literally the exact same maple from the exact same supplier that I used for the vinyl record shelves earlier in the video, but this stain turned out infinitely better. And pre-designing all of this digitally, then cutting the shelves out with the CNC meant everything fit together perfectly. I did modify the original design just a little by adding a center leg for the longer table for extra support. If they're storing heavy cans and things like that, these would have bit in the middle otherwise. While I was wrapping up these tables, I heard back from the first customer. Honestly, I expected the worst. After a hiccup like that, a lot of people these days would have been furious. Instead, he said that he appreciated how I handled the situation, that good customer service was hard to find, and that they wanted to try again once I got back from Texas. Also, yes, at this point, the sawdust is so bad I'm wearing a space helmet. Even though I had to eat the cost of the first set of materials, which was around $2,000, it was a relief to hear that they still wanted to move forward, and even more so, that they were so understanding about everything. I wrapped up these 2 tables just in the nick of time and got them delivered the day before I had to leave for Texas. They were really happy with how they turned out and even hired me to help out with a few smaller projects. I left that delivery feeling a great sense of pride and accomplishment, and I was looking forward to redeeming myself on round 2 of the vinyl record shelves project. Little did I know how close I'd come to ruining that set, too. I came back from Texas with a renewed sense of GSD, getting stuff done. I got to meet a whole bunch of vendors and see some really cool tools. Like seriously, some of the stuff I saw at Katz Moses' booth was pretty rad. I even took a couple really good classes while I was there that were led by some well-known woodworking YouTubers. There were a lot of content creators there, and I got to make a few new friends and hang out with some of my good buddies as well. Walking around with these guys all weekend, who you may recognize, we were pretty regularly stopped by other attendees who were like, "Oh my gosh, I know your channel, and your channel, and your..." Hey, who are you? But I digress. I met with the customer, and he showed me a piece that another carpenter had made for him years ago, and he said he'd like it to look closer to that and just ditch the finger joints altogether. The picture he showed me was red oak with a really dark stain on it. So I picked up a truckload of red oak and sent off to General Finishes for some stain samples. With the experience of already building these once, and the tables right after them, the assembly process went way faster this time around. I used dominoes for everything from aligning the boards to assembling the shelves themselves. They helped keep everything nice and straight, and overall I got way more consistent blanks without the need to flatten them on the CNC. This whole process did convince me to finally buy a much larger planer though. I also finally got tired of exclusively wrestling with those old Harbor Freight clamps and bought some fancy schmancy Jorgensen clamps. Oh, that's cool. They stand up. All right, Jorgensen, send me like 100 of these. Honestly, rebuilding these the second time felt good. I totally get why so many shops tend to turn into furniture or cabinet factories. You can refine the processes and just crank out the products. It's faster, the income is more predictable, and it's probably, on most days, a lot less stressful. But I kind of like the weird jobs, the one-offs, the unique stuff that other folks say no to because it's just not worth their time. And also, building different projects every time I walk into the shop forces me to learn new techniques and figure out where I'm lacking on every project, which it turns out is a lot of places. I've been building stuff for over 20 years, and almost every project is humbling in some way as I learn how much I still don't know. But powering through always ends up feeling amazing. And I come out on the other side feeling like I just slayed a dang dragon or something. That's also why I really love YouTube, both for making so much knowledge available and easily digestible, but also that I get to make videos like this myself with such radical transparency. I mean, sure, it hurts a little when people lay into you in the comments, but there's a lot of knowledgeable folks out there that do share helpful insights in a constructive and respectful way.
There it is.
And I like to think that the things I do well, or at least moderately well, might help somebody else out there who's maybe where I was 2 years ago to level up or at least skip some of my mistakes. Like the one I'm making right now that almost ruined this project again. I'm applying this water-based stain the same way that I applied the oil-based stain earlier, using staining pads, and thinking it was going on nice and even. But when it dried, all the open grain lit up like fish gills, completely untouched. I tried a second coat the exact same way, thinking I just needed more coverage, and it made almost no difference. So I went to the General Finishes website to make sure I was doing everything right, and their guy was absolutely flooding it on with a foam brush before wiping it off. So, yeah, water-based stain needs to be applied a little heavier to soak into those pores. So for round 3, I laid it on there like gravy on a biscuit, and that gave me the deep, rich, and even tone I was looking for. It took 4 cans of stain and 3 coats of clear to get these finished up the second time, and I think they look great. It took over 20 years for me to finally take the leap and start my own creative business. Sometimes the long way around still leads us somewhere amazing. Thanks for watching.